Okay, so Mark, say I run a business, I've got a few employees, got an IT thing, big, small, IT department. It's all going all right, mate?
Right.
In what circumstances should I check out the cloud?
Well, are you working out of more than one location? Are you working globally? Do you need to have things up 24/7? Is your power supply reliable? Is your staff reliable? So the more questions you start to ask around this, the more reasons there may be to take what you're doing inside and then to put it out on the crowd. Do I need to be able to access it only within my facility? Do I need to be able to access it anywhere in the world? Do I need to be able to access it from mobiles? So there's a whole bunch of different factors that come into play here that the more things you ask your own IT department to do, the more complicated it gets, the more resources you're pouring in, and eventually it becomes a losing proposition. And then that's when you need to go, okay, wait, the cloud will solve these problems at a price, but it will solve these problems for me.
Are they going to, all the IT guys going to lose their jobs?
Generally, the IT department ends up managing your cloud for you.
Right. So then I guess the question becomes, Kevin, if you still need the IT guys to manage the cloud, where do the cost efficiencies come in? In what circumstances is moving to the cloud going to be cheap?
Cloud, there's some incredible efficiencies from the supplier side. Let's start from there. One of the interesting things that's happened to IT in recent times is that central processing becomes cheap. In fact, the bigger you are, the cheaper it gets per unit. So it means that if you're a supplier, if you can have a big data center or a big system or whatever, and you're able to break it up into standard chunks, it becomes extremely cheap. The interesting thing from a supplier side as well is that you can start to look around your customer base and say, what are the things that they have in common? And start to look at incorporating best practice. Now, from a customer side, for those of us who have been around in the service delivery parts of IT, you'll know the pain and suffering when someone comes to you and says, I'd like to talk to you about a new system, and we're going to reinvent a HR system, and we'd like to start with a blank sheet of paper because we're different. And you just groan because you think, I've done this 1,000 times before, and I know the next questions are going to be. And the advantage for cloud for customers is that you immediately have what you see is what you get. I was working for a small business prior to joining Ovum.
What, Oz Industry?
No. I was in a number of government departments, and then I moved out of government and worked for a small company. That small company, we had need for a customer relationship management system. Now, for a small company, you could go down one route and say, well, our needs are completely different to everyone else in the world, and we would like to spend the next 2 years designing one. Or you could go to a supplier of a software as a service. We won't mention names, but you know the one. You know the people.
I bet Glenn will.
and you go to them and you say, we'd like one of yours, please. And we had a workshop for an afternoon, and the next day we were productive. I even had it running on my iPhone the day I left that afternoon.
Really?
With it working.
Because some people might think, I've got a bookcase in my office at home,
yeah.
And it just occurred to me the room would make more sense if I moved it over to the other wall and put it, but I'm not going to do that. I can't be bothered.
That's right.
I'll do it in about 25 years when the kids leave home. Some people might think it sounds like a good idea, but is it going to be disruptive? Are we going to have to shut down? Is it? To change it?
And I wanted to just quickly go back, if I may, to the IT, am I going to lose my job type of questions. And I think this is a fundamental question to think about. And what I have a very optimistic view of the cloud from an IT function where it allows the IT to change the relationship it has with the business. As opposed to being an operator in lower value things like please make sure that it's backed up. You are actually now becoming a peer to the business, a consultant to the business, a strategist to the business in terms of what IT can do for you. So you remove the big chunk of my function, which is operating IT, and I can free that resource and working closer with the marketing department, the sales department, whomever you, to really understand what IT can do for you, and my role changes and my value, and my perceived value changes within the business.
So you'd say, maybe, you don't have to mow as many lawns, but what you can do is think about the shape of the lawn more and other things.
And what's more valuable?
Right.
Yeah.
And if you think about the service, some of the services we talked about, you know, doing email, for example, you know, I work a lot with universities, you know, and they've got thousands of students coming in every year, and you know, traditionally they ran their own separate email systems for every different university. Rapidly, they've moved beyond that because they realise that that really doesn't differentiate the university. They've got to employ people, you know, get someone who does this really well at scale with efficiencies, and so you're seeing a lot of them move to, you know, to public cloud providers.
One of the other things that we don't want to overlook is when a software program needs to be changed. If you're doing it outside the cloud, then someone from IT basically has to go and install the program on every computer. Even if you have a system that pushes it out, it's not going to work on some of those computers. And we all know this is one of the dark secrets of IT. For some reason, there's some set of computers, it's just going to break.
Yeah.
And when you're on the cloud, it's magic. And you actually do the upgrade, and it's now working on all the computers because it changed in the cloud. It didn't change on the computer on the person's desk. So it makes it a lot easier. So in other words, things don't fall over as often in the cloud.
You know, someone like you should really know it's not magic, it's highly evolved science. But getting back to that question of disruptive, how disruptive is the changeover?
I mean, obviously it depends. You know, if you are starting out, I mean, you gave a nice example of a small business today. You know, if we were starting a small business, you know, I think it would just be a no-brainer to start picking the best of breed cloud technology and making use of it. You know, if you've got an organisation that's got IT that's been running for 30 or 40 years, you know, and hundreds of millions, probably billions of dollars have invested in applications, you know, it's not. There's some technical challenges of just sort of picking that up and lobbing it over into the cloud. So it's going to vary, and that transition cost is going to vary. I think what organisations are doing is they're kind of looking at their application portfolio and picking the pieces that make the most sense. You know, what that application doesn't really differentiate my business from someone else's. It's amenable for translation or migration into the cloud, and they'll go down that path. And then the legacy applications, you know, maybe will replace that over time, and there's going to be a set of work required.
And
to
I
do
take
that.
it by its very nature, if you start with that application, that application, and that application, it's then not that big a deal to say I want that one as well, and we might not have that one for a while.
Exactly. You know, you might, and there may be various reasons why, you know, you can't move this one. The data is too critical here. You know, this other one, no problem at all.
Yep, Kevin.
And that's the big difference that for many of us who went through the IT outsourcing era, you know, IT outsourcing was such a big decision. You know, you're moving your data center and all the stuff that ran on it, and you were moving it to this company that we really haven't had a relationship with before. Cloud, you know, and that can create some concerns about moving to cloud. Cloud is a different value proposition. You could start small, start simple, take your most least risk application, put it out on the cloud, try it out. If it doesn't work, what have you lost?
And we're seeing a lot of work, for example, in development and test. You know, people writing code and building applications. You know, that's just been a very logical workload that gets moved into the cloud.
Okay, in a moment we'll talk about some of the advantages, but also some of the perceived, at least, disadvantages. But first, Mark, how can connecting to the cloud actually change the way you do business? Are there things you can do that you could not do if you weren't connected?
I think the thing that it immediately gives you is it gives you complete geographic ubiquity, so that wherever you are in the world, you have access to the cloud. Whereas if you're talking about an old school IT infrastructure, you're only as connected as your infrastructure that you own is. So can you get in easy? Has it been highly secured so that people can't break in? Well, does that mean it's hard for you to get in as well? So when you move to the cloud, immediately what you do is you put it everywhere, and you also potentially put it on almost every device that's out there, because it's very easy for the cloud to be continuously available, but also to continuously keep up with new technologies. So whether that's a new tablet or a new phone or whatever it might be.
And of course, the change is a significant but subtle one for IT. That in the past, it was either good or a millstone, depending on your perspective. The fact that, you know, whenever someone came to you asking for a new application, you had to start to think, now, I need to buy some servers, and that's going to take time. I need to do some applications design. Let's send them a business analyst. We need to do some maintenance and some tests and all of these sort of things. Let's run through all of that. And there's a great deal of complexity just to get the system out the door. If you can have the basic building blocks available through the cloud, the conversation within the organisation is different. It's now a partnership discussion saying, well, I know I can do all of those things. I know I can ramp up processing because we turn the screwdriver. I know I can get these applications because we already have them available in a certain way. So now let's talk about your needs. Let's talk about what I can do for you tomorrow because it's generic, as opposed to highly customised next year. Which would you prefer?
And I think you talked about disruption, so I don't know if it's disruptive or evolutionary, but I think the change is more for the business than for IT. I think the cloud is an opportunity for the business to understand IT, because they don't have to understand the inner working. They just understand, as you just mentioned, what is it that I need from IT, and I want one of those. I don't need to understand how many servers it requires. I need to understand what type of software I need to buy. As a marketer, as a finance person, I want to have a dashboard. Give me the dashboard, and I can buy the dashboard. Give me my email system, I want one of those.
Well, so I really started to think about what is it that differentiates my business from some other business that can now run exactly the same software and exactly the same services. What is my secret sauce? Because we're getting to the point now where the information that you're providing and the information that you're sitting on can be so distributed and so out there and can be available everywhere. You can be running a global organization. I could be running a global organization from my desk in Chippendale now, and I could just be doing it. So what is it that organizations need to take a look at? What is it that they're doing that's so special that when everyone else has access to the same tools, and we're not far away from that, that means that they still have some advantage?
We've seen the vast majority of current cloud adoption as a way of having efficiency in my operation. So the primary driver today is operational efficiency. And I think it's a slightly short-sighted understanding of the cloud, where we're seeing an emerging type of companies, startups in particular, that are looking at the cloud as changing and disrupting business models of other larger companies. So one thing that I could basically suggest to people is thinking about the cloud as an operational efficiency tool and take advantage of that, but going beyond that and think about what are the type of innovation I can create, how can I disrupt existing business models using the cloud so that I can create the next Microsoft.